What's up, my dear boys and girls, it's your Ranger here, and hey, some content! Yay, I'm really sorry. Anyway, YouTube one day recommended me a video from my friend and fellow PokeTuber Entity Mace, and I was like, hey, I really want to watch that. And during the whole video, I smiled all over my face because of all the memories and the many times I said, hey, I like that moment as well. And then I watched a video from Lumiose trainer Zac, and that video was also really good. So long story short, I had so much fun watching those two videos that I also wanted to do this because it looked like fun, and hopefully you guys will also have fun while watching my video, and after that you should check out the other videos as well. So here is each and every Pokemon of Ash described in exactly 10 words plus my opinion. Overstayed his welcome, but who cares, because he makes money. Okay, I get it. Let's describe our beloved mascot in a more proper way. Everybody's best friend, so together forever, no matter how long. No matter how long. Jokes aside, it's really awesome how much Pikachu is beloved in the anime fandom, even after more than 20 years. We went through everything with this little buddy, from good times to bad times, from epic moments until really cringeworthy ones, but with that being said, I still enjoy Pikachu, and let's hope that he will stay for another 20 years. Yay! Only thing everybody remembers is that farewell moment with Ash. And it's kinda sad that the most famous moment of Ash's Butterfree is his farewell. Like, that's really sad. There were some few moments I really enjoyed about Butterfree, for example his evolution, the Metapod vs Metapod battle. God damn it, that was so good. Best battle ever. Or when Ash traded away his Butterfree only to show regrets. But yeah, I can't really say much more about Butterfree since it didn't stay for long and barely showed any character. The original bird, good for scouting, and sadly that's it. Ash's first of many flying type Pokemon and maybe one of the worst. I'm sorry guys, but let's be honest here. Do you remember the most outstanding character of Pidgeotto? Because I don't, and it's kinda sad. Especially if you compare him with the likes of Charizard and Squirtle when it comes to personality. And I always felt that his evolution and his farewell were both really underwhelming because it came out of nowhere. But I will always remember the episode where Ash and his Pokemon were stuck in that ice cave. I don't know, I always have Pidgeotto's pose engraved in my memories, with him being over Ash's head and hugging him with his wings. It always had such a nice touch to me. If only Game Bulbasaur would have been like Ash's Bulbasaur. Bulbasaur is so charismatic and lovable, and for an unevolved Pokemon, it always delivered awesome battles. Bulbasaur deciding to not evolve during the Venusaur festival has to be my favorite moment because as a kid, it confirmed to me that you don't really have to be like others to be great, and that's why I like Bulbasaur so much. Don't get me wrong, Game Bulbasaur is not that bad, but I will always prefer Ash's Bulbasaur over his game counterpart any day. Just an all-time classic, and nobody can argue that. Charizard is the first Pokemon in my opinion who started the trend of being a complete package. Adorable as a Charmander, and just when you thought that Charmander might get boring, evolve it, change its character and make it more entertaining. And just like both Entity and Zac mentioned in their videos, one of the most impressive things about Charizard was his development from a disobeying Pokemon to one of Ash's most reliable partners. And I wish I could tell you my fave battle of Charizard, but honestly I can't because there are too many. Charizard vs Magma, vs Articuno, vs Blaziken, and even his battle against Faulkner's Pidgeotto, and so many more. I don't want to waste more time, but let's just all agree that Charizard is awesome. Even without an evolution, you can be a born leader. And just like Bulbasaur, Squirtle was also really lovable and charming, but also had a childish side as well, and especially during his first encounter with Ash when he was part of the Squirtle squad. His battle with Ninjas was awesome, but I think the most memorable moment was actually before he left, with him once again reuniting with the squad and having that firefighting competition against the War Turtle team. It was so exciting to see, even though it wasn't even a battle, especially because in this episode you could see how much Squirtle has grown since he joined Ash, and that even with him not being with his squad for a long time, he still led them to victory. Like I said, a born leader, and that end scene of Squirtle saying goodbye to both Ash and Bulbasaur, such a manly goodbye. Don't need character if you have them big meaty claws and that hyper beam against Golbat. Damn. But besides that, meh. Barely had screen time and only reappeared in a cameo episode. If people really think that Goodra was a Pokemon with a rush story, you don't know Primeape. Without a doubt, I can say that there's no Pokemon which got shafted like Primeape. A cool Pokemon with barely any episodes before being given away by Ash, and since then never appeared in the main anime again, besides a cameo in Black and White. His evolution, that's the moment, and it's really depressing that most of the fandom only remember Primeape for that. Let's move on. Sometimes it is good to provide love the slimy way. We all know what Muggle Mug loves most is to hug people. He just loves to show some love, no matter if it's to Ash, Professor Oak, or even to enemies. I just wish that Mug would have appeared a little bit more during Ash's time in Kanto and Johto, because I was kinda interested in Mug's defensive style, which really is the direct opposite of what Ash prefers. But maybe because of that, Ash barely used Mug. Such a shame. One boy can provide love to all of his Tauros. I will come straight to the point. We never have seen Ash catching those Tauros, which is problem number 1. And problem number 2 is that every time he uses Tauros, we don't know which of them it is. And because of all that, I personally was never able to get invested into Tauros at all, even with the running gag of Ash getting run over by them. Sorry guys. Ash using his Pokemon as riding tool even before. At least Lapras, unlike Pidgeot, actually had both a character and a backstory. But what in my opinion really hurt Lapras' image a lot is the fact that Ash and his friends have used Lapras as a riding tool for the majority of the time. Yeah sure, Lapras was the reason Ash won his first Orange League badge, and the battle against Gengar during the league was also exciting, but still, using it as a constant form of traveling really decreased its overall reputation for me. You don't have to be muscular to be a boss. Snorlax is just amazing. As a kid I was always so excited every time Snorlax decided to get serious, and with good reason, because Snorlax is such a good and reliable Pokemon. Sure, it kinda lacks in character because the most memorable trait of Snorlax is being lazy, but in this case it doesn't really matter because of how badass this Pokemon is. Against Gary, Harrison, Frontibrink, Greta. Honestly, if you guys haven't watched those battles yet, you really should. Hopefully one day we will see Snorlax again.
Are you ready? Let's get ready to suck it!
Literally. Oh man, that sucking joke with him and Bulbasaur never gets old. But seriously Ash, this Pokemon kicked the shit out of Scizor, aka one of my fave Pokemon of all time, defeated a Magma despite the type disadvantage and performed very well against both Nando and Tobias. Sometimes I really don't understand you Ash. Also, why didn't Heracross appear during the Brock and Misty episode? Man, I would have loved to see him sucking on Bulbasaur again. God damn it guys, you know what I mean. No need to worry, Mrs. Ketchum. Ash got a girlfriend. Of course, one of Bailey's main traits is her obvious affection for Ash. She cares a lot about him. I mean, come on, he was the main reason why she evolved. But just like Serena, she's more than just having a crush on Ash. Down to earth and a reliable Pokemon who is not only strong but also showed a lot of creativity during battles. My god, that fine whip body slam combo. If only you would have been used against Tobias instead of Torkoal. I mean, you still would have lost, but at least you would have performed better. Little guy with cuteness overload and a lot of power. What was really remarkable about this Pokemon of Ash was that for most of the time, it really behaved somewhat timid and cute on the outside, but man, if this Pokemon gets serious, it was always a blast to watch. A lot of people like his battle against Bugsy, aka Best Girl, because of its execution, but I personally prefer his battle against Skarmory, in which you can see Ash and Cyndaquil training together with a lot of determination, and even though his evolution to Quilava was awesome, this evolution never really was able to leave an impact on me, because after that we barely have seen Quilava, which is such a shame, because it would have been interesting to see some more development. Just proves that there is always time for some comedy. Not really one of Ash's best Pokemon, but definitely one of his funniest one. But with that being said, Totodile was always able to put a smile on my face with him dancing and behaving in such energetic fashion, even during battles. So I can't really say much. To sum it up, a cool Pokemon with a good sense of humor. Somewhat like Pidgeot, but only a little bit more useful. Definitely one of Ash's more underrated Pokemon. Most people only remember Noctowl because it's Ash's first shiny Pokemon, and his only bird he caught, which was fully evolved. But thanks to his typing, Ash was able to use this to his fullest advantage, and therefore could show off how powerful that Pokemon is, especially during his gym battle with Morty, or during the Sinnoh League. He might have a little bit of a mysterious vibe around him, but sadly, just like Pidgeot, he lacks character. But it's not as bad as Pidgeot. Sacrificing character for the sake of pure power. Sort of. Donphan is one of those Pokemon of Ash where evolution might not have been a good idea. I mean, sure, as a Donphan, it was really powerful, but at the same time, it lost all its charm it had when it was a Phanpy. This cute and playful character, which at the same time could kick a lot of ass. I guess his most memorable moment for me was his tag team battle with Brock Steelix, with some actual good combinations, if I might add, against Team Rocket, which says a lot if your most memorable moment is a battle against Team Rocket. With that amount of endurance, Swallow can party all night. Wait, I have another 10 words to describe Swallow. Your overall success doesn't matter, one mistake can ruin everything. And what do I mean by that? Well, in my opinion, Swallow is really one of Ash's most overlooked Pokemon ever. In fact, a great Pokemon who scored a major victory against Wynona's Shiny Swallow, performed really well in the Evergrande Conference against the likes of Morrison and Tyson, and last but not least, had convincing victories against 2 Frontier Brains. But none of that matters, because nearly everybody remembers only one moment, the Thunder Armor. On the one hand, I like it because that just shows how cheesy and at the same time creative the anime is. But on the other hand, this one moment alone ruins Swallow's entire legacy. It's just so sad. Has evolved thanks to a love story better than Twilight. You look at this badass Pokemon, always having his twig in his mouth, confident in his skills, a very proud Pokemon, and probably one of the most popular Pokemon of Ash of all time. And then I think back of how Sceptile evolved, and it really just puts a smile on my face. He evolves for your sorry ass, and you dump him for that trope, you bastard. He couldn't even use any moves, so heartbroken was he. But that's not to say that that's the only good moment of Sceptile, because it had so many I can't even count them without fanboying. The first and only Pokemon who defeated Tobias Darkrai, Sceptile vs Maze Blaziken, Grovyle vs Norman Litarking, where it's jumping from wall to wall. I don't really know anyone who doesn't like Ash's Sceptile. The other guy with the big meaty claws. And actually likable. I really like Corphish, a small guy with a lot of strength behind those big meaty claws. But gladly he's not as flat as Kingler, but actually is a really likable and funny guy. When I first saw Corphish, I thought that he just would be a Totodile knockoff, but I was wrong. He was more of a troublemaker and also a little bit more stubborn and ambitious when it comes to, you know, everything, especially love. And even though, just like Totodile, Grovyle, Piplup, Oshawott and Chespin, you might not have the greatest of luck when it comes to love, but we still love you, man. No matter how much you cry, you won't get love. I wish I could describe Torkoal in a much nicer way, but sadly everything about Torkoal is just sad. Its only real character is crying. Most of his battles aren't really that memorable, and the only one which really impressed me, aka against Brandon's Registeer, he lost. I wish they could have done more with Torkoal, because I don't like to see Ash's Pokemon being wasted, but unfortunately, that's the case with this Pokemon. Power before character. That is basically all I can say. Glalie and therefore also Snorunt never really stood out to me because his prankster and energetic personality wasn't really that special, since we had something similar in Corphish, and his evolution to Glalie never really improved my first impression towards him. Not really that memorable. The only Pokemon Ash couldn't draw out his fullest potential. When it comes to Aipom, I kind of feel a little bit conflicted, because on the one hand, I really like the display of friendship and bond both Aipom and Ash had, with her being very clingy towards Ash, and not in a Bayleaf kind of way, but still you can tell that Aipom really liked Ash a lot, even to the point where she doesn't really want to be separated from him. But on the other hand, you could also tell from the very beginning that Aipom never really was the typical Ash Pokemon, because even though yes, she was really good when it comes to battling, at the same time it was really clear that she is more interested in contest. It became clear during Advanced Generation, and it became even more clear during Diamond and Pearl. So in my opinion, the trade between Ash and Dawn was actually a good thing. Aipom and later Ambipom was able to draw out her fullest potential, if it just wasn't for the whole Pokemon ping pong. If you like it, more power to you, but personally, one of the most unsatisfying endings to a Pokemon story in my opinion. But speaking of Diamond and Pearl, finally a bird done right, and with lots of personality. Okay, maybe I'm a little bit over-exaggerating, but I stand by my point that Staraptor at least started this phenomenon of bird Pokemon actually gaining at least some character, instead of being used for the sole purpose of being a scouting tool. A pride and determined Pokemon, and overall just a freaking badass. Have you seen how he escaped Gastrodon by pounding the ground with close combat? And just like Entity mentioned in his video, my favorite moment of Staraptor was actually the time he evolved during the Pokeringer tournament. Not only because of the evolution itself, but also because of the message Ash had towards Paul, who at first saw Ash's Staravia as useless. But his Staraptor proved to Paul that with hard work and determination, you can beat everybody, even a so-called prodigy. Good work, Staraptor. My relationship with this Pokemon can be described as complicated. I have to explain this. I loved Turtwig back then. I loved his personality so much because he really reminded me a lot of Bulbasaur, and that he could also be an example that you don't really need evolution to be awesome, as long as you can use your abilities to your fullest potential. But then it evolved. It went from a fierce Pokemon able to adapt Ash's battle style of speed perfectly to a Pokemon which slowly but surely lost everything I loved about him. Don't get me wrong, I like the story of Crocodile being depressed because it had to change his battle style, but at the same time it was less relatable to me, and by the time it evolved into Torterra, something died inside of me. I really want to love Torterra, but I just can't. But I will always remember it as the Turtwig I really liked a lot. Words cannot describe how awesome this Pokemon actually is. Period! Honest talk here, I would love to talk about Infernape so much, but I don't have to. Every video about Ash's Infernape, every comment you see about it is always about how awesome this Pokemon is, how engaging his story with Paul is, how vital his role in the Ash vs Paul rivalry was, and how perfectly he showcases that concept of hard worker overcoming prodigies. There is no Pokemon anime fan I have ever met who said that Infernape sucks. It's that beloved and well deserved. The other Pokemon trait of Ash, which actually made sense. As good as Weasel was on the Dawn, it was clear from the very beginning that Weasel is more of a fighter rather than a contest Pokemon. Cool and kinda a show-off, aka a personality which suits Ash's style way more than Dawn's. And after it was under Ash's guidance, it shows. My favorite moment of Weasel definitely has to be his battle against Mr. Mime, especially that moment when it learned Ice Punch, while also activating Swim Swift. Weasel in my opinion shows that a change of trainer, and therefore a change of environment, doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. I said sometime. The perfect example of how to do character development right. Every time I think about the most outstanding Pokemon of Ash with the most impressive aggression, there are few which come to mind. Charizard, Infernape, Greninja and Gliscor. From beginning to end, it was a joy to watch Gliscor's development, from an intimidated and insecure Gligar to a strong and confident Gliscor. And the best thing is that it didn't sacrifice his goofiness, while also constantly improving himself from episode to episode. I know a lot of people like his battle against Paul's Drapion, but I actually prefer his battle against Byron's Bastiodon a little bit more because I really love the tactical aspect of that battle. If only this Pokemon would have appeared sooner. Just imagine, this Pokemon has everything from lovable character traits until some very impressive battling skills. If only you would have appeared sooner, damn it! And it's especially so infuriating because we have witnessed the epicness called Garchomp with the introduction of Cynthia. And no matter how good Gible performs, there will always be this mindset, this imagination that it could have been a Garchomp. Well, hopefully one day. After the epicness called Staraptor, we seriously get this? Really? Before I will start with the next chapter, I gotta say that I personally didn't watch Black and White during its airtime, because during that time I graduated. But I heard a lot of stuff about Black and White, a lot of bad stuff. People really hated Black and White. And when I watched Black and White, I didn't understand why, because I really love Black and White. So, in my opinion, the hate for Black and White is often for the wrong reasons. But if there's actually one reason to dislike Black and White, it's this. So since Pidgeot, we slowly but surely distance ourselves from the bird without personality, and instead of that we were moving towards a better direction, only to go back to the status quo. Don't really have to tell you how disappointing Unpheasant is, not necessarily from a battling standpoint. His battle against Skylar was amazing, but more from a character one. Okay, maybe I'm a little bit too harsh towards Unpheasant, but if you compare this bird Pokemon to Staraptor and later on Talonflame and Rowlet, it really just feels underwhelming. I'm really sorry. I mean, its design is pretty cool. Again, battling wise, it's really good. When it comes to the characterization, it really is, in my opinion, a major downgrade. We don't have to discuss this. 10 out of 10. Every time I got a little bit frustrated about Black and White, this guy has to appear and all my worries were flushed away. I love Oshawott. Thanks to Black and White, Oshawott became my favorite Pokemon of all time. Like every other Pokemon of Ash, Oshawott was surprisingly good in battles and even very creative. But what makes Oshawott most noteworthy is his character. Charismatic as f***, cocky, a ladies man, more than often overconfident, and at the same time adorable. And if you combine all that with how small Oshawott is, that always leads me to one question. Why haven't I already bought that $50 talking Oshawott plush? Anyway, best thing in Black and White. Also, by the way, Melota is Oshawott's waifu. Could be awesome if it wasn't a blatant Infernape copy. In itself, I like both Tepig and Pignite. The only problem here is that since Unova is a direct follow-up to Sinnoh, and therefore Tepig is a direct follow-up to Infernape, there will be comparisons, and my biggest issue with this is that sadly, the story of Pignite just way too similar to Infernape's story. A supposedly weak Pokemon who got abandoned by his trainer evolved during a battle against his former trainer to prove him wrong. He's a hard worker who always tries best, but he will never get rid of this image of being a cheap version of Infernape. Really depressing. One of Ash's most down-to-earth Pokemon, and female. Serious talk, Ash. You really need more girls in your team, man. Who said that only boys can adapt your style while looking badass? If you want to know an example, it has to be Snivy. Snivy is maybe one of the most underrated Pokemon ever. This girl alone has more character than every Tauros of Ash combined. Down to earth, elegant, powerful, while also having the utmost respect and loyalty towards Ash. It's basically a very solid package. And she represents everything what I expected from Turtwig when it comes to potential without evolution. So Ash, get your twerking ass together and finally include another girl into your Alolan team, damn it. Only problem with Snivy is that it was involved in the worst gym battle I have ever seen in my life. aka the gym battle against Eliza. Oh. A baby Pokemon, but at the same time, not really. Another day, another hatched Pokemon which acts all cute or crybaby. Well, Scraggy says you to that concept by immediately throwing out all of these cliches out of the window, only to replace it with, how can I describe it? A fight-hungry attitude? Surprisingly tough, and for my taste, a little bit too overconfident in his own skills, but the mere fact that this Pokemon acts so opposite to all the baby Pokemon we have seen so far makes Scraggy really unique in itself, therefore still engraved in my memory. No parents during travel? No problem. Just catch one yourself. A typical childlike behavior in its first form and a parent in its final form. That's basically all I can say about Leavanny. Not really one of the most impressive Pokemon, to be honest, neither in character nor in battle. Well, let's move on. I remember you, Palpitoad. Sadly, most of the fandom doesn't, and I can't really blame them. That's once again one of the things about Black and White you easily could have criticized. Absent for most of the time, mostly used as a rotation Pokemon, and honestly not really that memorable, and also involved in the Eliza battle. Ugh. Boulder. Overall, a really overlooked Pokemon, and also a freaking tank. Personally, I really liked both Rock'n'Roller and Boulder. There's nothing really that special about Rock'n'Roller, since it's just like some of Ash's Pokemon in the past. Some sign of character in its first evolution, but then decreasing that aspect for the sake of showing power. But I still enjoyed him, especially during his battle against Gym Leader Clay and his Excadrill. Man, that rock smash at the end. A crocodile with sunglasses. The best thing in Black and White. If it wasn't for Oshawott already, then the second reason to actually watch Black and White might be this fellow right here. Definitely his strongest Black and White Pokemon, and just like every other strongest Pokemon of Ash, like Charizard, Sceptile, Infernape, and Greninja, it's very proud of his abilities. But in my opinion, his pride is also connected to those really cheesy sunglasses, since he immediately loses all confidence and gets much more nervous when losing them. A really funny gimmick in my opinion. What I really liked about Crocodile in specific is how they actually build it up. It didn't immediately got caught by Ash, but instead of that had a rivalry with Pikachu and battled several times against Pikachu before finally joining Ash. A really cool concept that has never been executed before, and later on would be adapted by Litten as well. I gotta say, my fave moment of Crocodile has to be his battle against Bryson back then when he was a Crocorock, especially because I really liked that Stone Edge tactic. It's just so Ash. If that boy had a baby with Naruto, Ninja Frog! But all jokes aside, I don't really think that it's necessary to mention how freaking awesome Greninja is. But I have to say one thing, when it comes to the overall story, it's not as good as Infernape, but it's still amazing. You start with that one starter Pokemon who always got rejected by numerous trainers, until it found the one trainer it can finally trust in. And I also love how they slowly but surely shifted the main Pokemon role from Pikachu to Frogadier, and later on Greninja. Which you can especially see during his rivalry with Sawyer's Grovyle. Also, Ash and Greninja's journey to overcome their depression, I still love that story to death. If there ever was a story of a Pokemon I got so connected and engaged with, it has to be either Infernape or Greninja. But I will slightly tend to Greninja, even though Infernape's story is a little bit better. I just really prefer Greninja. Together with Sylveon, he's my favorite Gen 6 Pokemon. Thanks Greninja, and hopefully you will come back one day. And my fave moment? Just everything. Yes, even that moment when he got defeated by a kiss. After the disgrace which was Unpheasant, we really needed this. You don't know how glad I was when I realized that with Fletchling and later on Talonflame, we finally got a bird with personality back. Oh my god, what a relief. I gotta say that when it comes to overall characterization, his strongest moments were when he was either Fletchling or Talonflame. As a Fletchinder, he was okay, but even with that, I still love Talonflame. The mere fact that Ash nearly always could rely on Talonflame in gym battles, besides that one against Clement, obviously says a lot about this Pokemon's overall power and reliability. And even though one of the most epic moments ever was Talonflame versus Moltres, I actually prefer what happened right after the battle, with Ash screaming from his lungs before running down the walls of an active volcano and catching his Pokemon while also willing to die in flames. Oh my god, such a badass! whaz, and also shows a deep bond between the two of them. How can you top the epicness of this Pokemon? It's basically a wrestler, or more precisely a luchador, with kick-ass moves and even his own dedicated theme. Like, come on, every time Hawlucha's theme starts, I just get so pumped up. And it also has the traits of what makes luchador wrestlers special: honor, hard work, and respecting family. And by family I mean especially his sort of father-son relationship between him and Noibat/Noivern. So cute. The only problem I have with Hawlucha is that I just wish it had a little bit more screen time, because I really like how they displayed Hawlucha. My favorite moment of Hawlucha, it has to be his first introduction, with that epic theme, combined with him throwing the mask away before destroying Ursaring. Cute as fuck, only if his story wasn't so rushed. Now let's move our attention to Goodra, and oh damn, here comes one guy I still have mixed feelings about. On the one hand, the beginning of his story was really good, with his phobia/trauma towards fairy types, and his goal of trying to overcome that, which in the end led to a really nice friendship between him and Dedenne. But his overall story and evolution was way too rushed. But even so, I still like Goodra, because every time it battled, it was a very reliable Pokemon. Even so good that some people even called him a pseudo-legendary. Nice. I like you, Goodra. You freaking adorable blob. And may you never be forgotten. I won't. Especially when he tried to punch Serena, or his epic gym battle against Clement. And last but not least, came out of nowhere and dominated. Even a f***ing legendary. God, I love Noivern. Yes, his evolution was also a little bit too rushed, just like Goodra, but in my opinion it was still handled a little bit better, because at least Noibat took careful baby steps towards maturing before evolving. The slow friendship build up between him and Hawlucha, that race he had, and being happy about it, even if he didn't win the race, and that love triangle thing. But even so, I have to admit that defeating a legendary bird after evolving, on the one hand it was so epic. Just really epic. But on the other hand, it was a far stretch. But in short, I really enjoyed the little story of Noibat. Just wished he would have appeared a little bit sooner. And that's basically it, guys. I will wait until Ash's Alola team is finally complete before making that video. With that being said, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Honestly, guys, I really missed you. And I also missed saying this. See you guys in the comments down below. Bye, guys!